He left before she even walked the stage. So I opened the envelope she'd hidden in my purse. The applause hadn't stopped, but I had. I sat frozen in the second row of the auditorium, surrounded by proud faces and camera flashes. Eric's seat beside me was empty, still warm from when he stood and whispered, "Be right back." That was 20 minutes ago. Our daughter's name was next. He knew that. Still, he walked away. And I already knew why I didn't cry. I didn't chase him. My fingers clutched the small cream envelope I found tucked between my compact and lipstick, Lily's handwriting, delicate and certain, addressed only to me. "Read this after," she'd written. But after had just been rewritten. He made sure of that. I felt every eye pass over me like heat from the stage lights. I adjusted my shawl. Smiled faintly. My husband had just missed our daughter's graduation. Not for a funeral. Not for an emergency. For her. The woman he thought I didn't know about. The one who wore perfume I hadn't owned in years. Lily crossed the stage, and the auditorium roared. My body clapped, but my spirit did not. She looked straight into the crowd, found my face, and smiled. Not the kind of smile you give your parents. The kind you give your anchor. I clapped harder, and the envelope pressed against my ribs like a secret heartbeat. After the ceremony, parents flooded the aisles, taking pictures, crying, embracing. I waited by the far column, beneath a faded banner that read, "Class of Excellence." Fitting. Eric didn't come back. Not for the walk. Not for the diploma. Not for the photo she'll frame someday and wonder where he was. Lily walked straight to me. Her cap in her hand, her eyes searching mine. "You read it?" she asked softly. I shook my head. I was waiting for the right moment. She nodded once, tight-lipped, and handed me a bottle of water like it was armor. I knew then, this wasn't just a letter. It was the first stone. In the quiet collapse of everything. We sat in the car for a moment. I unfolded the envelope in the glovebox light. It wasn't her handwriting this time. It was Mrs. Ellison's, her senior advisor, the woman who once told me in the teacher's lounge, "Claire, you're raising a storm in silk." The letter began softly, almost too softly. "Dear Claire, I debated for weeks whether to tell you. But your daughter insisted on truth. And truth deserves a witness." My breath caught before the second paragraph. I read the rest with my hand over my mouth. Eric hadn't just betrayed me. He'd done it in the very place I'd built my life. Around, the school where I taught, where I gave up tenure so he could move for a promotion. The woman wasn't just anyone. She was a substitute, 12 years younger, from Lily's theater department. The letter didn't shout. It whispered. Details only someone who'd seen too much could write. "She wears your perfume. Not because she likes it, because he told her it reminds him of his younger days." I folded the paper slowly, like it might scream if bent too fast. Lily didn't ask what it said. She didn't need to. Her silence was sharper than anything in ink. She simply started the engine and drove us home. No tears. No questions. Just the shared understanding of two women who had seen enough. The house was quiet. Eric's coat was gone. So were his shoes. His key still hung by the door, the only thing he left behind. I walked past it without touching. Lily went upstairs. I sat at the dining table, unfolded the letter again, and placed it beside the wedding photo. That photo had been there for 17 years. Smiling faces, matching ivory tones, and a promise buried beneath image. I looked at it now, and saw something new. I was already alone in that picture. Then my phone buzzed. A message. From Eric. "Sorry I missed it. Something came up." No punctuation. No name. Just the final insult, casual abandonment. I picked up the photo. Removed the frame. Slid the letter behind it. Then I placed it back, perfectly aligned. Perfectly staged. And in that moment, I knew, that wasn't a graduation. That was a funeral. That wasn't a ceremony, it was a goodbye dressed in applause. He said I made him feel like he mattered. I didn't know I was just building his resume. We met at a charity fundraiser for the arts, a wine and cheese kind of night where I came straight from school still smelling of chalk and paper. He said he liked that about me. Said I wasn't like the others. I laughed at the time, not realizing I'd become just another name on his list of useful women. Eric worked in marketing back then, slick, ambitious, but broke. I was already teaching full-time, managing after-school programs, living modestly but steadily. He moved into my apartment 3 months after we met. Said it felt like home. Said I made him feel grounded. I mistook need for love. Our wedding was small. Garden ceremony, homemade vows. He cried when I walked down the aisle. I remember thinking, he sees me. But now I know better. He saw opportunity. I paid for the caterer, the rings, the honeymoon. My name wasn't on his lips. My name was on every receipt. The early years were sweet, at least on the surface. He'd make dinner while I graded papers. We'd sit on the couch and dream about our future kids. He said he wanted a daughter who looked just like me. He even picked her name, Lily. I didn't realize how many things he named so he could one day leave them behind. When he got laid off in year 5, I carried us. He stayed home to find himself, while I worked double shifts, taught summer school, took night classes. I clipped coupons while he read books about leadership. I thought I was investing in our future. But it was just his. When Lily was born, everything changed, for me. I became a mother, a provider, a protector. For Eric, it was more like a distraction. He held her for 5 minutes, then went to answer emails. I remember holding her tiny fingers and realizing I'd just become the only adult in the room. Still, I defended him. He's trying, I'd tell my sister. He's stressed. I thought loyalty meant silence. So I didn't mention the late nights, the perfume, the slow withdrawal from family dinners. I didn't ask why he always sat at the head of the table but never spoke to Lily about her day. When he got the big promotion and we moved states, I gave up my tenure-track position. He promised I'd find something better. This is our fresh start, he said, kissing my forehead. I didn't know fresh meant erasing me from everything I'd built. The new city was glossy but cold. I took a job below my qualifications just to stay near Lily's school. Eric started traveling more. Client dinners, he said. Networking. I stayed home. Planned birthdays. Sewed costumes. I became background music to his highlight reel. By year 12, we stopped going out. He said he was tired. I stopped asking. Our anniversary dinner became takeout and silence. The spark was gone, but the bills were paid, so I told myself we were fine. Until silence stopped feeling safe, and started feeling final. Lily grew up between two versions of her father, the charming man at school functions, and the ghost in our kitchen. She noticed. Kids always do. But she never complained. Just like me. We learned to lower our voices, shorten our hopes, and keep the house in order. The first time he missed a recital, Lily waited on stage 5 minutes longer than the others. When she finally walked off, she said, "It's okay, Mom. He's busy." She was 10. That was the night I realized she was learning to excuse the inexcusable. Just like I had. Every sacrifice I made for both of them. For the image of the family. For the dream of being seen. But I was never the dream. I was the scaffolding. The steady, invisible frame holding up the man everyone admired. And in all those years, through all the dinners and diplomas, he never once asked me what I wanted. Not really. Because the truth is, he never saw me. He saw what I gave him. And now, as I looked back, I realized, I gave too much for too little. I wasn't his partner, I was the proof he could do better next time. He stopped asking how I slept, but noticed when I gained 5 pounds. It started with the little things. He'd correct my stories mid-sentence, then laugh like he was helping. At dinners with his coworkers, he'd say, "Claire used to be a real firecracker," like I'd burned out and didn't know. I'd smile politely, pretending I hadn't heard the expiration date in his tone. I bought a new dress once, deep green, soft fabric, just below the knee. He looked up from his phone and said, "You always go for safe choices." I wore it anyway. But that night, he posted a photo of his team at dinner. I wasn't in it. Though I was right beside him. He started coming home later. No explanation. Just longer silences, louder sighs. He said work was stressful. That I wouldn't understand. I didn't ask more. I already knew what silence sounded like, and his was starting to scream. He began complimenting other women's ambition in ways he never did mine. "She's really driven. She's got vision." I used to be those things, once. Before. I gave them up for his. Now I was supportive, steady, reliable. Words that meant essential until they didn't. Conversations became transactions. "Did you pay the water bill? Lily needs new shoes. Don't forget the client brunch." I tried to talk about books, music, even dreams. But he was always too tired. Or in the zone. Or halfway out the door. On our last anniversary, I booked a dinner reservation at the same restaurant where he proposed. He arrived 30 minutes late. No apology. Just a distracted, "I forgot this place was still open." I held the menu with shaking hands. He never noticed. Or maybe he did, and liked it. He started locking his phone. New passwords. Turned it face down at the table. "Just work," he said. "Confidential stuff." I wasn't suspicious at first, I was exhausted. I didn't want another thing to manage. Another disappointment to hold in silence. He took up jogging, said he needed clarity. But he always came back freshly showered. Once, I found a second gym bag in the trunk. Women's deodorant inside. "I got that for Lily," he said. She hated that brand. I didn't argue. Just stared at the driveway while he disappeared upstairs. Lily began noticing, too. Her voice changed around him, more formal, more careful. She stopped asking him to come to school events. Started asking me to bring her early, stay late, walk her in. I saw her building walls he didn't even try to climb. One night, I stayed late at school grading papers. When I came home, I found 2 glasses in the sink. Lipstick on one. I didn't wear that shade. I didn't wear any at all that day. I washed them in silence. Hot water. No questions. Just clarity. He'd ask about dinner but never about me. He noticed dishes I forgot but never the dark circles under my eyes. When I got sick and stayed in bed for 2 days, he said, "Let me know if you need something," then left. I didn't ask. He didn't check. Even his affection changed. His touches were colder. His hugs quicker. Kisses on the cheek replaced what once was a long stare. I tried once to reach for him at night. He turned away. Said he had a headache. I stared at the ceiling for hours, memorizing the cracks. When I mentioned going back for my master's, he said, "Why now?" I said, "Why not?" He never answered. Just scrolled through his phone and nodded like I'd asked about groceries. That was the moment I realized, my dreams didn't fit in his schedule anymore. There was no single blow. No one fight. Just erosion. 1,000 tiny betrayals that wore down the woman I used to be. I stopped wearing perfume. He didn't notice. But when a package arrived from a brand I didn't buy, addressed to him, I opened it. It was mine. My old scent. He bought it again. But not for me. He didn't forget who I was, he just gave her to someone else. He missed Lily's speech, but posted a photo with her drama teacher 20 minutes later. It happened on a Thursday. The week of finals. Lily had been chosen to give the closing speech at the senior awards night, the highest honor. She'd practiced it with me for days, reading it in our kitchen with trembling hands and flushed cheeks. Eric said he'd be there. He even promised her a surprise. That night, I wore navy blue, the dress he once said made me look timeless. Lily wore the necklace I gave her at 13, the one with the tiny silver leaf. We arrived early. I saved him a seat, second row, aisle side. He never showed. Lily's voice didn't break once during the speech. But her eyes searched the crowd only once, and they didn't find him. She didn't falter. Not outwardly. But I saw it. The way her fingers tightened on the page. The pause that wasn't in the draft. The inhale before she said, "My mother taught me to stand even when it hurts." Afterward, she stood beside me for pictures. Still no text from Eric. No call. No flowers. I told her maybe he got stuck in traffic. She didn't argue. Just nodded and said, "I'm tired. Let's go." On the way home, I checked his social media out of habit. He'd posted a photo, 20 minutes ago. At a rooftop bar downtown. Smiling. Arm around a woman in a red dress. Her back to the camera. Caption, "Celebrating milestones with someone who understands the journey." I didn't show it to Lily. She already knew. Silence is a language daughters learn early. She went upstairs, still in her heels, and closed the door without a word. I stood in the hallway, phone shaking in my hand. That dress. That arm. That caption. That betrayal. It wasn't just infidelity. It was performance. He wanted to be seen. Wanted everyone to know he'd moved on, even if no one knew from what. He wasn't leaving a wife. He was shedding an obligation. A woman who made him uncomfortable by remembering too much. The next morning, I found a charger missing. A drawer half empty. His office smelled like that perfume again. Sweet, synthetic, too young. There was a single note on the counter, "Didn't want to make this messy. We'll talk soon." Lily didn't speak to him for 2 weeks. Then, out of nowhere, he showed up at school. Not to see her, but to donate a grant to the theater department. Pictures went up on the school site, Eric shaking hands with the principal, standing beside the new drama instructor. Mrs. Ellison was the one who called me that night. "Claire," she said, "I think you should know what's going on." Her voice was calm, but careful. She didn't say affair. She didn't need to. She just said, "Your daughter deserves better than this performance." I stayed awake that night. Every hour stretching into the next. I replayed every missed dinner, every redirected glance, every time he said he was building something for us. The truth settled like dust, slow, suffocating, undeniable. That weekend, Lily came downstairs holding a small envelope. "You'll need this eventually," she said, placing it in my purse. "But not tonight." I didn't ask. I just nodded. She had her father's eyes, but none of his cowardice. 2 days later, Eric sent me an email. Not a call. Not a knock at the door. Just a subject line, "Let's be adults about this." I didn't open it right away. I knew what it would say: terms, timelines, division. A contract for erasing history, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I boiled water. Made tea. Sat in the kitchen with the overhead light off. The letter from Mrs. Ellison sat beside me, unopened. I could feel its weight without touching it. He'd humiliated me publicly. Not with rage, but with absence. Not with betrayal, but with substitution. He didn't break our life, he replaced it. Quietly. Efficiently. As if love had an upgrade button. As if I was the outdated version. He didn't leave, he rebranded. And I was the logo he peeled off. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just moved his key off the hook, and didn't tell him where I put it. The house was never louder than the night I said nothing. He walked in like a guest, careful footsteps, casual tone. I figured we should talk. I nodded once and kept wiping the counter. The kettle hissed behind me. I didn't offer tea. He stood there, in the middle of the kitchen, waiting for me to create space for his excuses. He started with, "This wasn't planned," and moved to, "I never meant to hurt you." I didn't interrupt. I just let him speak, and hang himself with every polished sentence. He tried to paint it as a transition. "We've grown apart. You've changed." As if I'd accidentally become invisible. He used words like mature, respect, understanding. Words that sound like peace but reek of betrayal when said with that kind of detachment. When he asked if I had anything to say, I smiled faintly and said, "I already knew." That shook him. He blinked. "Since when?" I didn't answer. I turned off the kettle. Poured only one cup. Sat down and sipped it while he hovered, searching for the version of me who used to soften his falls. He asked where Lily was. I said, "Upstairs." He didn't call for her. I think he knew she wouldn't come. She hadn't spoken to him since the night of the awards. She saw what I spent years explaining away, and she was done faster than I ever was. He reached for the photo on the side table, the one from our wedding. I let him hold it. Let him stare at the moment we both promised more than we were ever capable of giving. Then I took it back. Set it face down. When he finally asked, "Can we still be civil?" I smiled again. "We can be quiet." He laughed. Unsure if I meant it as peace or punishment. I didn't clarify. Clarity was no longer his privilege. He offered to stay in the guest room until things settle. I told him the sheets were already clean, and the door locked from the outside. He didn't ask for a key. He just nodded, pretending that was his idea. Pretending control. Even in retreat, the next morning, I watched him pack. He left behind the small things, the sweater I bought him that he never wore, the coffee mug with our initials, the tie Lily gave him last Christmas. Objects too honest to carry forward. When he paused at the door, looking at me like he might say something important, I tilted my head. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Left. The silence he gave me for years finally returned to him. I didn't cry. I didn't touch the couch where we last sat as a family. I walked upstairs, crawled into Lily's bed, and let her braid my hair in the dark. She said, "You don't have to be strong tonight." And I whispered, "I'm not. I'm just done." 3 days passed. No calls. One email. Legal language, vague offers. I forwarded it to an attorney. The kind who didn't ask for details, just evidence. I had enough. Screenshots. Receipts. A witness in a red dress. I started moving things. Not furniture, perspective. I stopped waiting for his name to show up on my phone. Stopped looking for his shoes by the door. Stopped hearing the echo of someone who left long before he walked out. I threw away the expired spices he loved. Donated the books he never read. Rearranged the shelves. Reclaimed the corners of the house I'd made small for his comfort. The silence felt different now, mine. Then I found the envelope again. The one Lily slipped into my purse. Still unopened. Still waiting. It wasn't fear that stopped me before, it was timing. And now, I was ready. I didn't lose him. I released him, and that's not the same thing. I opened the letter, and found out I'd been erased long before he left. The envelope was thinner than I remembered. Cream-colored. No seal. Just folded. I opened it slowly, at the kitchen table, while the afternoon light cut gold lines across the surface. Lily was at school. The house was still. It felt like the right time to see clearly. The letter began with Mrs. Ellison's elegant script. "Claire, I debated for weeks if this was my place. But your daughter asked me to give you what she already knew." My heart tightened. Lily knew. And she'd still waited for me to be ready. Inside the envelope were 2 things, a printed email chain, and a photo. I read the emails first. They were from Eric, not to the woman in red, but to the school administration. He'd requested a tuition adjustment for Lily. Claimed limited parental involvement from the mother. He wrote those words while I was sewing her graduation dress. He filed the paperwork that erased my name from the emergency contact list, the same week I was hosting a fundraiser for the school's arts department. I was in the building. He was removing me from it. The photo came next. It was taken from behind, Eric and the drama teacher, her hand on his back, standing outside the very same classroom where I taught literature for 3 years before we moved. The caption, written by a student on social media, read, "Guess. She's the new Mrs. Donovan." I sat for a long time. Not shaking. Not crying. Just breathing through the sharpness. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd rewritten me. Scrubbed me from records. Unnamed me in the places that had once been mine. I checked the date on the emails. 3 months before he left. 3 months before the "we've grown apart" conversation. He'd already started shifting the narrative. So when he walked out, no one would question it. Just another strong man making hard decisions. I printed the emails again. Forwarded them to my attorney. Then I texted Lily, "Thank you for waiting until I was ready." She replied in seconds. "I always knew you'd read it when it would matter most." That night, I sat with my journal, the one he never knew I kept. I wrote down every date, every lie, every substitution. Not for revenge. For record. For memory. Because erasure only works when the erased go quiet. Then I remembered the bank account we opened together when Lily was born. One meant for her college fund. I checked the balance. It was lower than expected. I requested the statements. One transfer stood out, labeled "consulting gift." Sent to a name I didn't recognize. But I recognized the initials. He had touched everything. Our finances. Our child's education. Even my title on legal forms. But he forgot the one thing I always kept separate, the trust my grandmother left me, hidden behind my maiden name. Untouched. Growing quietly. Waiting. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with the head of Lily's school board. I brought the emails. The financial record. The letter. I didn't demand anything. I just placed the papers down, looked her in the eyes, and said, "I believe in accountability." She didn't ask questions. She read in silence. Then she said, "Thank you for protecting your daughter." And just like that, a ripple started. Quiet. Contained. But irreversible. When I came home, I walked past the wedding photo again, still turned down. I opened the frame. Removed the letter. In its place, I slipped in something new, Lily's graduation photo. Just her and me. Both in navy. Both smiling with something that wasn't pride, it was peace. The envelope, now empty, sat on the counter. I didn't throw it away. I placed it in the drawer where we used to keep takeout menus. A reminder of what I digested, and what I no longer would. He rewrote the story. I kept the receipts. He laughed at the board meeting. I smiled. Then I handed them the envelope. It happened on a Thursday, the same day of the week he left. Full circle. The school board had called a meeting regarding the theater grant, now under review. Standard audit, they called it. But I knew better. It wasn't just numbers. It was narrative. Eric walked in wearing his best navy suit, the one I had tailored for his first keynote years ago. Still fit, but looser around the eyes. He smiled when he saw me. Not warmth, strategy. A man who thought charm still worked on rooms he'd already dirted. The board president welcomed everyone. Then mentioned concerns raised by a former staff member and parent. He turned to me. I didn't flinch. I didn't look at Eric. I looked straight ahead and opened my folder. Inside were the emails. The bank statement. The photo. The printed letter from Mrs. Ellison, now notarized. I laid them on the table like cards in a game I no longer played. One by one. Wordless. Eric's smile faltered when he saw his name under request for parent replacement. He coughed when he saw the transfer labeled consulting gift. And he stared too long at the line, minimal maternal involvement, primary educational support provided by father. He tried to interrupt. Said it was context, a clerical thing. But the head of the board raised her hand. "Mr. Donovan," she said calmly, "you'll have your turn." And he didn't speak again. The drama teacher wasn't present. But her absence was louder than her presence would have been. One of the documents bore her signature. A coordinator stipend agreement, co-signed by Eric, without administrative approval. That was the final stone. After the meeting, he followed me into the hallway. His voice dropped low, urgent. "Why would you do this?" I turned to him slowly and said, "I didn't." "You did. I just stopped hiding it." He stood there, stunned, trying to patch a sinking boat with borrowed charm. But charm doesn't work when the room already knows who turned off the lights. He looked around, as if expecting someone to intervene. No one did. I walked past him. Calm. Straight-backed. As I reached the door, I heard him say, "This is going to cost you too." I paused, looked over my shoulder, and replied, "I can afford it." 2 days later, the school released a statement, administrative realignment due to procedural discrepancies. Eric's name wasn't mentioned. Neither was mine. But everyone knew. In silence, reputations shifted. His speaking engagement was postponed. His company removed his photo from the upcoming summit page. Lily never asked what happened. But she came home that night, held out a white box, and said, "For you." Inside was a perfume bottle, the one he had gifted someone else. Only, this time, it was empty. She smiled and said, "You never needed it anyway." I nodded and placed the bottle next to the framed photo of her graduation. Symbols change when we take them back, the silence continued. No messages from Eric. No apologies. Just absence, the honest kind. I let it stretch. Let it settle. And in its echo, I heard something new. Space, the attorney called the next day. Said the divorce was proceeding without dispute. Eric had signed the agreement without contest. No negotiation. No fight. He was folding, quietly. Finally. I asked her to add one final clause, Lily's education fund, fully restored, in writing. He signed it. Probably didn't read it. Most men don't when they assume you're still the scaffolding. But I was the storm now, with paperwork. That night, I poured one glass of wine. Sat in the kitchen. No music. No light. Just me and the letter that started everything. I read it again. Not for pain, for proof. I didn't need revenge. Just restoration. That wasn't a takedown, it was a return to truth, signed in silence. He left a space beside me. I never filled it, and never needed to. The house is quieter now, but not hollow. Every room echoes differently when you stop waiting for footsteps that don't come. I rearranged the furniture. Not to erase memories, but to reclaim the floor plan. I moved the dining table near the window. We eat where the light touches us now. Lily's off to college this fall. We packed together. Labeled every box. She asked if she could take the framed graduation photo. I told her yes, but she paused. "You keep it," she said. "You earned that smile." I didn't argue. She took the empty perfume bottle instead. I go for walks most mornings. Past the school, past the bookstore, past the cafe where he once promised me a future. It doesn't hurt anymore. That street belongs to my steps now, not his shadow. I walk slower. I look up more. I wear the green dress he said was too safe. Turns out, it never needed approval. The final document arrived last Tuesday. A flat envelope. Clean. Final. Inside, the divorce decree. Signed. Filed. Closed. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I placed it inside the drawer with Lily's baby shoes, the letter, and the receipt from the fundraiser he missed. My archive of quiet victories. I see his name sometimes, tagged in posts I don't click. Smiling beside women who haven't yet learned his patterns. I don't judge them. I just scroll past, untouched. There's a difference between forgetting someone and being free from needing to remember. Sometimes people ask if I'm seeing anyone. I say no, but I smile when I say it. Because the truth is, I see myself now. Fully. I take myself to dinner. I buy the flowers I used to wait for. I wake up without bracing for silence. I sleep without apology. The wedding photo is gone. In its place, Lily's graduation, Mrs. Ellison's thank you card, and a new photo, me, standing on a cliff in Maine, wind in my hair, alone. Not lonely. There's a difference. Lily calls every Sunday. She tells me about classes, dorm chaos, the books she's reading. Last week, she said, "Mom, I told my professor about your story." She said it sounded like a novel. I told her. Maybe it is. Just not the one he thought he was writing. Eric never apologized. Never explained. But I didn't need him to. His silence became his legacy, not mine. I answered it with presence. With proof. With paper trails and framed truths. The teacher's letter is still folded inside the drawer. I don't read it anymore. But I keep it. Not for pain. For peace. A reminder that one sentence, in the right hands, can undo years of performance. Some nights, I sit with a glass of wine and nothing else. No TV. No music. Just the sound of my own breathing. My own becoming. He left a space beside me, but I didn't rush to fill it. I let it breathe. Let it teach. Let it stay. And now, that space is mine. I didn't move on. I returned to myself, and she was still here, waiting.